Welcome to the Deep Dive, the only place where we really cut through the noise and give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
Yeah, that's the goal.
And today, we're on a pretty fascinating mission, I think.
Yeah.
We're digging into a very targeted advanced vocabulary lesson.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a master list, 15 words that native speakers just seem to pull out when they want to sound, precise, educated.
Professional, right.
Exactly. Elevate their language.
And look, if you're trying to get past just understanding English and really start wielding it effectively, then this deep dive is, it's going to be super useful for you.
Right.
We're not just going to rattle off definitions. That's not the point. We need to get into the feel of these words. Are they formal, casual? What's the sort of emotional vibe they give off? Positive, negative, maybe just neutral.
And the nuance, right. That seems key.
Absolutely crucial. The nuance of context. Why pick this specific word instead of a simpler one? What extra layer does it add?
Okay, and our source for this is, it's a really focused vocabulary lesson, packed with examples, right? Real world stuff, clips of native speakers.
Exactly. This isn't just theory from a textbook, it's practical. The idea is, by the end of this, you'll feel ready, or at least more ready, to actually use these words.
Integrate them, like in your next meeting, or even just a conversation.
Think of it as, upgrading your mental toolkit.
I like that. Okay, so where do we start?
Let's jump right in. Section 1 is all about verbs, specifically verbs that kind of define how we interact. With people, with habits, maybe even hobbies or ideas.
Okay, interactions. Got it. Let's unpack the first one. It sounds social, but you mentioned complexity. Mingle.
Mingle. Yeah, it's a great word, precisely because it has this sort of dual nature.
Okay.
The first meaning is the one most people know, the social one. Moving around, talking to different people at an event, like a party or conference.
Right, that light interaction, moving fluidly.
Exactly. Guests mingled over coffee. It suggests a kind of easy, low-pressure mixing. Your boss might say, go mingle at the office party.
Yeah, it means get out there, talk to people you don't normally talk to.
But then there's the second meaning, which is where it gets more interesting, I think, to mix or combine things.
Okay.
And when it's used like this, it often sounds a bit more descriptive, maybe even poetic sometimes.
So not just mix. Like you wouldn't just say the smells mix.
Right. You'd say something like the smell of fresh bread mingled with the aroma of coffee. It feels more integrated, blending distinct things into one experience.
That definitely sounds more evocative. It paints a better picture. But the source material took it even further, didn't it? You mentioned biology.
It did, yeah. It used mingle to talk about genetic diversity, describing how previously separate groups allowed their genes to mingle, which expanded the gene pool.
Wow. Okay. So it keeps that core idea of blending separate things, but applies it to something really complex like genetics. It sounds more formal there, maybe a bit detached.
Exactly. It describes the combination, but emphasizes the sort of natural, free interaction of these elements, whether it's genes or, people at that conference.
So choosing mingle over mix adds that layer of fluid, integrated, maybe even metaphorical blending.
You got it. And speaking of light interaction, let's move to dabble.
Dabble. Okay, this sounds less involved than mingle.
It is. It's an action verb, but it means taking part in something in a really casual, sort of superficial way.
Like the classic example, right? Someone who dabbled in photography during college.
Perfect example. They weren't aiming for a career. They just tried it out, maybe for fun, out of curiosity. No deep commitment.
So it implies enjoyment, maybe, but without serious investment.
Yeah. You might dabble in cooking, trying new recipes on weekends. You might dabble in learning a language on an app for 5 minutes a day.
But you listen now, you're not dabbling with English, right? That's the point you made.
Yeah. Definitely not. You're here for the deep dive. You're committed. Dabbling is lighter than that.
Okay, so usually it's positive and neutral for hobbies, curiosity. But when does it become negative? Because it can. Right.
It absolutely can. It turns negative when someone is dabbling in something that really demands serious focus or shouldn't be treated casually, high-stakes areas.
Right.
Well, think about professional fields or politics. If someone's just dabbling where they shouldn't be, it implies they're interfering casually, maybe without proper authority or understanding. It starts to sound like meddling.
Oh, okay. So it's like unauthorized casual interference.
Precisely. And why use dabble instead of just saying meddle?
Good question.
Because dabble carries that extra nuance of lightness, of it not being taken seriously enough, which is often the heart of the criticism.
Right.
The source gave that really strong political example. The military is not supposed to dabble in domestic affairs.
Okay, yeah. Using dabble there makes it sound like the military's involvement is casual, maybe even frivolous, when it absolutely shouldn't be.
Exactly. It implies it's not their core mission, it's an overreach, and it's being done superficially. It's a very subtle but effective critique.
So tryout is neutral, but dabble adds this lightness that can turn negative if the situation is serious. It's a really useful distinction.
It is. Now, if we crank up the intensity from casual interference to really intrusive interference, we get to pry.
Pry. Ooh, yeah, that just sounds intrusive, doesn't it?
It really does. The most common meaning is definitely negative in social situations. Trying to find out private stuff about someone, basically being nosy but more determined.
An unwanted investigation into someone's life.
Yeah, but native speakers have a trick for this, right? If you absolutely have to ask something sensitive, you soften it first.
Right. The classic, I don't mean to pry, but
Yeah.
you signal that you know you're crossing a line.
Exactly. It's like, I know this is personal, but maybe you're asking about why someone seems upset, or like in the source about a wedding date that's maybe a sore subject.
It's an apology and a warning in one. But you mentioned a connection between this social prying and a physical meaning.
Yeah, this is what makes the word interesting. The core idea is force or unwanted intrusion.
Like the physical definition.
Yeah.
To open something using force.
Yeah.
Like he pried the lid off the paint can because it was stuck shut.
Precisely. The lid resisted, he forced it open. That shared idea, forceful, unwanted entry, links the two meanings.
Okay, I see that.
And the source material actually connected them directly. The speaker said her mother won't stop prying. That's the forceful investigation because the mother is urging her to set a wedding date.
Okay. The prying is driven by this strong urging. So that leads us perfectly to urge.
Exactly. And urge is way stronger than just encourage.
Right. Encourage is like, hey, you should apply. Urge is more intense.
Much more intense. It means to strongly encourage or persuade. When you urge someone, you're applying significant pressure, verbal, emotional, because you think the action is really important, maybe even vital.
So a mentor wouldn't just encourage, they might urge you to take a promotion.
Yes. Using language like, you absolutely must apply, this is perfect for you, don't wait. There's an insistence there.
Okay. And this pops up a lot in more serious contexts, right? Politics, professional advice.
Definitely. The examples we saw, like Howard urging someone to open myself up to uncertainty, that's deep psychological encouragement, pushing someone towards a risk.
And the political examples are always quite forceful. Sacha Baron Cohen urging the Silicon Six, including Mark Zuckerberg.
Right, urging them to take more responsibility. That's not a gentle suggestion. That's public, high-stakes pressure demanding immediate change.
It signals that the speaker sees inaction as having really severe consequences.
Exactly. Now, if urging is about pushing for a new action, our last verb in this section, cling, is kind of the opposite. It's about resisting letting go.
Cling, okay. Holding on tight.
That's the core. It starts physically, right? A scared child clung to her mother.
Or like wet clothes clung to his body. Descriptive.
But again, for advanced usage, the abstract non-physical meanings are often more useful. Resistance, emotional attachment.
Like clinging to the past.
Exactly. The source mentioned employees who cling to old habits even when changes are needed. Cling here suggests a kind of desperate, maybe even irrational attachment.
Stubbornness. Refusing to let go of what's familiar, even if it's not working anymore.
Precisely. It implies inertia, a resistance to release. And the source even touched on a deeper sort of philosophical idea.
Which was?
The idea that humans tend to cling to the comfort of what appears to be useful.
So we stick with what feels safe or known, even if objectively it's time to move on.
Yeah. It speaks to that basic human tendency to value perceived comfort over potentially difficult but necessary change. Cling captures that deep-seated resistance really well.
Whether it's wet fabric or old ideas. Okay, that makes sense.
So cling conveys that inertia powerfully.
That's a great set of verbs. And it sets us up perfectly for the next section, right? Moving from actions to adjectives. Words that describe character, tone, especially in communication.
Exactly. We need words that give us precision when talking about personality. And we start with a really direct one, blunt.
Blunt. Okay, this means direct, straightforward, maybe too straightforward.
That's the key tension. It is direct, but often to the point where politeness is sacrificed. You say what you think, clearly, without softening it.
Like if someone asks for feedback and you just say, I don't like your shirt. That's blunt.
Very blunt. Or in a professional setting, that idea is inefficient, no sugarcoating. The definition inherently includes that risk of coming across as rude.
So, why use it? If you want to maintain relationships, especially professionally, why choose a word that implies potential rudeness?
That's the critical question, isn't it? You choose blunt when clarity and honesty are more important than diplomacy in that specific moment. It signals confidence, maybe efficiency. You're prioritizing the raw message.
Then we talked about that mitigation technique.
Right, the preemptive apology. Look, I'm sorry to be blunt, but...
You're not qualified for this position based on your resume. It acknowledges the lack of polish, but makes the message absolutely clear, undeniable.
Exactly, and the source gave us that intensified version to be brutally blunt.
They put test prep on steroids.
Yeah.
Adding brutally just hammers home the harshness of the truth being delivered. It means no compromise, pure directness.
Yeah, it really amps it up.
Okay, so bluntness is about directness, maybe at the expense of feelings. But what if that confidence tips over into being aggressive or offensive? That's brash, isn't it?
Absolutely. Brash is also about confidence, but it's confidence shown in a rude, noisy, or overly pushy way. It's definitely not a compliment.
Confidence overkill. Abrasive.
Exactly. If someone's just confident, we have lots of positive words. If they're brash, that confidence has become unpleasant, irritating, overbearing.
Like the example of the coworker whose brash behavior annoyed everyone because he was constantly pushing his ideas and shooting down others.
Perfect example. It's pushy, maybe loud, dismissive. It crosses the line from assertive, which is good, into aggressively abrasive.
Or the salesperson making a brash pitch. That sounds unprofessional, maybe desperate.
Yeah. Pushy, loud, probably not respecting the client's space or time. It's negative.
But didn't the source have a slightly different take with the historical reference? Bernini, the sculptor.
It did. He was described as a brash young man of 25 when he did some famous sculptures.
So what does brash mean there? Still negative.
It still carries the core of rude, pushy confidence, but in that context, it's maybe softened by associating it with youthful energy, perhaps undeniable talent or genius. It acknowledges the negative behavior, but hints at an underlying fire.
So maybe implying youthful arrogance mixed with brilliance. But the rudeness is still there.
The rudeness is still definitely part of the meaning, yes.
Okay, so from blunt directness and brash aggression, we shift to the opposite. Emotional distance. Let's talk about aloof.
Aloof. This describes someone who isn't friendly or forthcoming. They seem emotionally distant, reserved, maybe detached.
Like the classic stereotype of a teenager.
Right.
You ask how their day was, you get a grunt or a one-word answer.
Yeah.
That's being aloof.
Exactly. That non-committal, reserved behavior is key. You can't quite read them. Are they happy, sad, bored? Their aloofness makes them seem inaccessible.
It usually comes across negatively, doesn't it? Like coldness or even arrogance.
Often, yes. That's the default interpretation. But, and this is the important nuance, is it always negative?
The source suggested maybe not. Like in a professional setting.
Precisely. Think about a manager who stayed aloof from the office gossip.
Ah, okay. In that case, being aloof means they remained distant, didn't get involved, ignored the petty stuff. That's good judgment, right? Professional boundaries.
Exactly. The distance is purposeful and beneficial in that context. It shows objectivity.
But the risk is how it's perceived, especially if people don't know why you're being distant.
That's the danger. The source had those examples from native speakers reflecting on perceptions. My peers and my boss all thought I was aloof and arrogant.
So if people don't understand the reason for the distance, they tend to assume negative motives like arrogance or disinterest.
Yeah. And you see the same with public figures, like the quote about rock musicians are more aloof. It feeds into that image of the inaccessible star. The reason for the distance changes how we feel about the word.
Understanding that difference, professional distance versus negative perception, is really key for using it right. Okay, great set of adjectives. Let's pivot now. Section 3, words about the world around us, dangers, sizes, limits.
Right. Words describing scale and threat. Let's start with a really evocative verb, loom.
Loom. It sounds ominous.
It often is. It engages the visual sense but connects it straight to threat or uncertainty. The main meaning is physical. Something appearing as a large, unclear, or threatening shape.
Like dark clouds looming on the horizon. It's not just that they're there, it's that they feel big and menacing.
Exactly. Or in a spooky story, a tall figure might loom in a dark hallway. You can't quite see it clearly, and that uncertainty makes it frightening.
And this translates to abstract threats too, right?
Perfectly. Meaning two is when something seems about to happen, and it's almost always something negative or challenging.
So a deadline approaching is just a fact. But if the deadline looms, it feels heavy, threatening, maybe difficult to meet.
Precisely. It implies the approaching event is causing anxiety or pressure. It's not just coming, it's casting a shadow, demanding attention.
And this gets used for big, serious things, politics, business challenges.
Very much so. The source mentioned challenges looming for President Trump or described competing commitments alongside these looming threats. It paints a picture of serious, impending difficulty that you just can't ignore. It's reserved for significant, usually negative, future events.
Okay, so from looming threats, let's talk about just size, substantial size. The adjective hefty.
Hefty. It means large, heavy, or substantial. And interestingly, unlike loom, hefty can be positive or neutral, depending on what it's describing.
Right, like getting a hefty raise, that's definitely positive. It means a big, substantial increase in pay.
A very welcome thing. But the core is just size or weight. And that can apply to negative things too.
Like a hefty fine.
Exactly. No company wants that. It means a large, substantial penalty, probably for breaking some rules. The size makes the consequence severe. We're talking big money.
So the core is weightiness or substantialness, physically, like a hefty bag of groceries.
Yeah, difficult to carry.
Or abstractly, like money. Or the source had that fun example with food coloring.
It did. Someone cooking said, I'm drizzling each with a hefty hit of yellow food coloring.
A hefty hit. So more than just a tiny drop.
Yeah, a generous, substantial amount. Even in that context, it emphasizes the significant quantity or weight.
Okay, so if hefty is substantial, the complete opposite must be meager.
Meager, yes, exactly the opposite. It means very small or insufficient in amount. And this one is almost always negative because it implies lack, scarcity.
Right. If someone lost their job, their meals might become meager, not enough.
Exactly. Or their resources. It's strongly linked to hardship, poverty. People coming from meager backgrounds didn't have much growing up.
Workers getting a meager salary implies it's unfairly small, not enough to live on properly.
Yeah. Or if you survived a trip on meager resources, you were really lacking essentials. It paints a picture of insufficiency, struggle.
It's a powerful word for conveying that sense of not enough. The source had that interesting example about dinosaur bones, using meager to show surprise.
Ah, yeah, that was fascinating. The price for 7 vertebrae was described as a meager $295.
Now, $295 isn't nothing, but for 7 dinosaur vertebrae.
Exactly. Relative to what you might expect for something so rare, $295 seems shockingly small. Insufficient. Meager is used there deliberately to highlight that surprising lack of value or compensation.
It emphasizes the discrepancy.
Okay.
Now, from abstract scarcity to something very concrete, a word that seemed simple but had that amazing detail attached. Pebble.
Pebble. Yeah, just a small, smooth stone, right? Found on beaches, riverbeds, totally ordinary.
We have them in our gardens, maybe carry one in our pocket. Seems mundane. So why is this on an advanced list? Is it used metaphorically?
Surprisingly, no, not in this context. It's the fact connected to it that makes it advanced vocabulary in this case, the shock value.
Which was. I remember being amazed by this.
The source revealed, in a paleontological context, every pebble that you see on the ground there is a piece of dinosaur bone.
It's just incredible. It completely reframes the word. Suddenly, this common little stone is a fossil fragment, a piece of ancient history scattered everywhere.
Right. And that's why it's here. It shows how even the simplest words gain power from context and revelation. You wouldn't say every small, fragmented lithic remnant. You say pebble, because that's what they look like, making the underlying truth even more stunning. The ordinary appearance contrasts with the extraordinary reality.
That's a fantastic point. Wow. Okay, that brings us to our final section. Mindset, support, challenge. How we approach things mentally.
Exactly. How we deal with knowledge, support systems, obstacles. Let's start with that spark of intuition, hunch.
Hunch. A gut feeling, right?
Pretty much. It's a noun for a feeling or a guess that comes from intuition, not from hard evidence or logical reasoning. You just feel something is true.
Yeah, you can't explain why, but you suspect something.
Yeah.
Like having a hunch the weather will change, even if the forecast is clear.
Or following a hunch down a side street and discovering an amazing little cafe you'd never have found otherwise.
It's very personal, subjective.
It is, but sometimes it pays off. His hunch about the weather turned out to be right. And the source material showed this too, mentioning a situation where we tested her and her hunch proved correct.
So intuition even without proof initially, can actually lead to the right answer. It gets validated.
Exactly. And that validation can be powerful. It might encourage you to trust your gut more next time.
And if you have that hunch, or any idea really, and you need to strengthen it or support it, you might use the verb bolster.
Bolster, yes. It means to support, strengthen, or improve something that's already there. It's about reinforcement.
And it works for abstract things, like confidence.
Definitely. You might try to bolster her confidence before a big speech. That's psychological support.
But also for concrete things, like projects or defenses.
Absolutely. Extra funding can bolster the research project, strengthen its financial base, and we hear it constantly in global affairs. Calls to bolster security, or nations working to bolster the defense of our frontline allies.
So it's about adding support to make something stronger, more robust, more secure than it was before. Targeted improvement.
Exactly. And often you need to bolster things because you're facing something difficult, something daunting, our final word.
Daunting. Okay, this sounds like more than just difficult. It has a sense of intimidation.
That's the perfect word for it. Daunting is an adjective for something that seems difficult to deal with because it's intimidating, usually due to its size, scale, or complexity. It's about the mental hurdle.
So starting a huge new project from scratch might feel daunting.
Exactly. Or the source mentions someone facing the daunting task of organizing a massive conference. It highlights that feeling of apprehension before you even start. The sheer scale feels overwhelming.
The source gave that great physical example too. Climbing the mountain looked daunting from below.
Yeah.
You see the massive challenge ahead.
Right. But then it contrasted that with a task involving a huge number of discs. 1,048,576, I think it was.
Yeah, something crazy like that.
And it described that task as daunting but entirely doable.
Ah, okay. So daunting acknowledges the intimidation, the mental challenge of the scale.
But the entirely doable part suggests it's manageable. The capacity is there. Daunting defines the psychological hurdle, the feeling of being overwhelmed, but doesn't necessarily mean impossible.
It frames the challenge mentally. It recognizes the intimidation, but leaves room for the possibility of success. That's a really precise emotional state to capture.
It really is. And it's a common feeling when facing big life changes or projects.
So that's our 15 words. Wow. We went from social interactions like pry and mingle, maybe even cling, to describing character with blunt, brash, aloof. Then scale and threat loom, hefty, meager.
Right. Even pebble in its surprising context.
Yeah. And finally, mindset. The intuitive hunch, the supportive bolster, and facing the daunting.
It's a really versatile set of words.
And the value, as we said, is in that precision, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the subtle differences. When is mingling just socializing versus combining? When is dabbling okay versus meddling?
Exactly. Mastering those nuances is what moves you from just getting by in English to really communicating with professional impact.
Which was the mission. Giving you that deeper understanding fast.
Hopefully we've done that.
Yeah.
And maybe as a final thought for you to chew on, we talked about hunch, right? That gut feeling that can turn out correct without initial proof.
Yeah.
And we talked about needing to bolster things to strengthen them. The source showed intuition can be validated. So here's the question. If you're facing something truly daunting, maybe a situation where there isn't clear evidence or external guidance, how much should you trust that hunch? And if that hunch does prove right, should we then start trading verified intuition itself as a kind of resource, something to be actively bolstered, trusted, relied upon, even if we can't quite trace its logical origins? Is validated intuition a form of knowledge?
That is a deep question. Something to mull over as you keep bolstering your own fantastic vocabulary. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.